And finally, this segment on accessible data closes with a case study presented by Kohei Kurihara, co-founder, Privacy by Design Lab in Japan. Kohei's presentation is about his vision of a data-driven smart city and the impact and use of data in smart cities and Internet of Things, IoT, the related privacy and ethics issues on data.
Thank you for everybody. My name is Kohei. I'm glad to be invited. It's great opportunities. I'm working at the Privacy by Design Lab, which is the privacy concept into design of the business operations, the public use. That could be the best practice for the smart city. I'm assuming that this is a very challenging topic because the smart city is not the worst. We had started to take an initiative recently because it's a little bit old-fashioned. But now we are trying to use the technologies for the city development because technology has the great powers for the sustainable city, as well as giving back the great benefit for the citizens living in even the countryside. They can take a benefit through the digital technology. Of course, this benefit is included in Asian countries, such as my country in Japan has been started. The smart city, we called it the super city development, then trying to integrate it, the new digital technology for the city management. However, we have some of the issues and conflicts in between the people who is living in the city to achieve this goal. And this is a very challenging, not only for the technical people, but also the business side or citizens who lives in a local environment. Through my presentations, I'm very happy to share some insights from the case of in the city of Canada, where they had faced some of the issues of the smart city. We can learn from this instance, then we can apply the important aspects of the privacy inclusions of the smart city development, especially using the data driving the city development. Again, I'm really happy to have a talk with this woman on this sessions and happy to share some of the insights. So many times the smart city has been discussed among everywhere in the world. But the smart city is not just the city development. It's just a very important concept to be included of the people who is living in the city and enhance the environment. We often, the government or business is driving this dialogue, leaving the citizens who should be inclusions. But this is not the great approach because the citizen-driven is primarily important to develop the city in some ways. For example, in Canada case, I will share the details afterward. This is a primary important to focus on the citizen first, in compared to the other city, such as in New York. In that cases, the New York experts came to the other cities and tried to developing, but outsider has a different cultures to deploy new technology into the city management design. We can learn from this perspective the same to the other cities as well. For example, in our country, Japan, we have a local city has raised their hands to deploy the digital transformations. But actually, it's not easy to deploy the technical driven ideas for the agreement with the citizens. So the smart has the many interpretation, not just the technical development, but also the communications. The privacy is great keywords to make a great communication in between the user and business to government. Finally, get agreement to proceed in it together. Otherwise, we are missing the piece around, such as the personal isolations or data insufficiencies. Especially statistic data for the public use is very important. I had talked one expert in United States. She is researching the United States of the census. However, the problem is in a local city, we can easy to identify the person even has the minority background, such as the Asian background. They are just only one person is living in the city could be identified in the local area. But in the metropolitan area, the city, such as in Tokyo and Singapore, or where the other city could be the diversified to background, then identity is not easy to be found through these city processes. We call the data is then newly presented to make a great benefit, but actually data is not perfect. We have to reconsider what is the best for the city management, not just relies on the data, but also we have to take balances to privacy and data. That is the keywords of the inclusions of the new city. I emphasize and try to put this concept into the city management. In order to make a city design, I think this 7 principle is the recommendations. This concept is created by Dr. Kabukian. She is a former commissioner, privacy commissioner in Ontario, Canada. She came up with these ideas and she released the concept in 2009. Those 7 principles is the basic ideas, basic proposal for deployment of privacy into the architectures of your business and operations besides the product management. The first concept is proactive. You should pay attention to the instant, not just to reactive. It's a proactive. That is very important to prevent the users never being harmed of the specific infringement. The second point is the default. Default is the basic functionalities that we can take from the products and services. User-friendly approach with the privacy concept in default is very important. Without the knowledge, experience, even disabled can easy to find the products and services based on the privacy preserving approach. The third concept is embedded into design. That should be the full functionalities of the data lifecycle into design, because the data is no longer that anyone has it, that just the owner is sticking to the users who has their own rights to representative of the data. So the design embedded is the crucial ideas to solve that issues, not just to create the patchwork, it's designing altogether. The full functionalities. Sometimes we compromise the privacy against of the data utility. Of course, data has very big powers to give a feedback for the users, but actually we have to consider the privacy as well. So we try to make a win-win approach, not just win-lose. There is full functionality should be on the board, the infrastructures of overall. Fifth concept is end-to-end security. Security is no longer the functions to be left at this moment. It's a very important part of the infrastructures. In order to make a safety approach, the security should be designed. However, privacy and security never being compromised in each of them, just coexisted. So the end-to-end security is exist in the moment altogether. Six in visibility and transparency. In a data society is very complex, not only for the users, but also the companies or other stakeholders. We have to be transparent, accountable for each of them to provide the internal services, the essential operations, keep it open, not just being closed. It just open innovation is a great keywords to create new innovations. However, we don't have to be selfish. We try to co-create the new values together. Lastly, with respect for user privacy. Privacy is the basic rights for all of us. Inherently, we have it since we came to this world. Then we should be protected the privacy. Even we in the public space, we should be taking a consent before the giving the data to the specific controller. That is the essential approach of the user-centric. We should keep it user-centric for the business management, the business operations. This is an essential. All 7 principles should be considered to the success of the city management with user data. I think this is a great opportunity for the city development, not just only for the government or other business opportunities. So one difference in accordance with this concept, sidewalk labs, they developed their own technology for the business. It's an umbrella of the Alphabet Group. They have a very biggest development planning from 2017, but actually their city management is no longer sustainable at this moment. Of course, they have some issues of the COVID-19, the decreasing of real estate price, but also they have the issues of the agreement in between the citizens who lives in the area that is primary for the city management. From the history, we can learn a lot to make more sustainable city should be included with the communications of the citizens living inside. And also, we have to promise them with the great approach, the privacy preserving communications. The Sidewalk Lab has started their development in Toronto from 2017. That project was in a publicly applications, and they are selected, they nominated as the best partners to develop the city of waterfront. There is a great project. Many citizens expected their future development because in Toronto, there was a very big gaps, especially finance, in between the top and bottom. There was a very big issues. Technology has new empowerment to solve the issues. And also, some of the people is expecting innovations with a new technology. The Alphabet Group has great experience and technical experts. And also they are based in New York, has the great experience as well. This project is expected to create the city management innovations for the future. It's a business model. At the beginning, they are trying to start the consulting service for the management because there was no specific directions how to develop the roadmaps. There was no any mainstream goals of the city operations. So their consulting is the first phase. They have a knowledge, they have a technical solution, resources might be applied to deploy it into design of the city. The second part of the business is real estate. In waterfront, becoming the place for the immigrants, especially from China, is moving to the city to take a residence. They're becoming the higher price of the real estates. It was a chance for the business to increase the values for the citizen living in the city, getting more rich than making more money. It's a real estate operations. Finally, they are planning to make administration license. The license model could be applied to the other city because the city management is very high cost, very operational. If the technology is the new alternative to solve the issues, those license has a very big opportunity for the business. In every country is try to become a digital, try to become a data-driven. So license business is lucrative in next decades. They estimated those business model should be found to create a data-driven city in Toronto, and they will make the new business domain through that. At the data city, all the citizen behavior has been collected on the database, and this data has been analyzed to the best choice for all the citizens. For example, the citizen is taking any facilities, then those facility is taking the data from the citizen behaviors, then feedback for the users can take in the benefit. It's an automation system. And the Google has their own algorithm and ecosystem for the advertisers to promote their business to the citizens. That is their own win-win approach. At the first, Google is trying to develop their own system. And they try to keep promising to the users that Google is the responsibilities for the citizen data. That is a great approach because it's obvious who controls the data. The citizen can easy to claim that in case of the incident of something, can easy to solve the problems by the responsibilities. That was ideal for the citizens to promise everything. The one single entity is controlled it. So the Google Alphabet Sidewalk Labs is the company to take on that. However, it's becoming a serious. This picture has been taken from the article of the Forbes. You can find the link through the presentation if you're interested in that. That is a roundtable discussion among citizens. Of course, the communication is very important to facilitate it, the process with the citizens. However, we have a gap in between the developers and citizens because the developer side has their own intentions. For example, they had published their own papers, the roadmaps for the futures. But the problem is on the roadmaps, they just included very similar, very small words, such as the social, human, inclusion. It's a less ranking, but they are putting the more innovative technical data. Those words is the top words on this document. It's very hard to be convinced from the citizen side, then agree to permit it to start the business by the Google, then Alphabet, then Sidewalk Labs. That is one big issue. At the same time, the very crucial instance, the Facebook has been released the personal data to the other country, there was a very big issues in the United States. Of course, same concerns has been arising in Toronto as well. That is also the big impact for the city management. And the Google is changing their mind, not just to take responsibility by themselves, but they just to put the open place for the third party to join and sharing the data. That becomes serious. Google has to promise the old citizens to protect their data at the first, but actually functionally is not. That is become suspicious among citizens as well. This is a very mistakenable approach, not just an inclusive approach with the citizens. So who knows the citizen data is there? That is a very big problem. In the cities, we are not seeing any signs of signals when your data is being collected, the houses the data is being used, and then who is the controls the data in case many stakeholders are involved in the ecosystem and platform. Citizen is not able to be seen in all the processes. I think it's a very big problem. We need a transparent for the citizens and to answer the questions when the data is being collected. What is the consent operations? In terms of the city management, this is a high priorities to convince the citizen. Otherwise, those citizens is against of the city management. In the social communities, people try to engage in each other, but any technologies or any physical devices is surveilling the social communities, people become suspicious. Those claims arise as well on these communities, then they become against of the city directions. This is a very critical instance for the companies, for the business, to integrate the technology into the cities and inducement. That isn't happening actually. Dr. Kabukian was one of the advisors. She said it on the interviews when she resigned the advisory role because she promised at the first to making a privacy design into the city with her concept, but actually Alphabet Group Sidewalk Labs is not realizing it finally. Because the problems unauthorized access, the hacking is a very big risk. I had a talk with her. She said to me, secure management is necessary for all the cities. The hacking is pretty important instance nowadays. Then we are not unavoidable for all the things is hacking instance. In case you collecting citizen data, you should be in a hacking risk. It's unavoidable. How to deal with? Minimize the customer data. That is the answers. But actually, Google direction wasn't against. That is no longer the place to be sitting all together. That is very impactful to Google, the sidewalk labs, to keep running the business. I think this is the one of the mismanagement of the city development, especially smart city development. Even you have a great journey of the business model for real estates, the license and the lucrative the next decades. I have some privacy approach. One is the governance. You can see the user consent parts. That is very important. In the physical space, we are not able to visualize the consent button, consent operations. When the user is consent, that is critical. You have to take easy signal for the users to give the data. The accountability is necessary for the business operations, the city management. Otherwise, nobody is been following the directions. That is a very big issue. The user rights, user has to take responsibilities for your data. That means user has the portabilities of the data. User can control to give the data for the city services. That is the ideal, but actually is not compatible with the data owner-driven business. We should change the direction of just leaving the citizens to be inclusive of the citizens based on the user rights. Then transparency, that is very important to appeal the users why you are deserved to work on the city management. You should explain it to the users, the citizens, again and again in the real space, digital, other message. That is the key factors of the transparency. For the infrastructures, I assume that blockchain is futures because nobody is control the data. It's been decentralized. It's an ideal. However, we have to prepare some kinds of the privacy preserving environment. Otherwise, on the blockchain, we see the privacy infringement of the data is being processed. That is not good. So the privacy governance has to be coexistent of the blockchain infrastructures. That is future. That is future. That is the best practice for all. It's just that in timing right now, privacy by design is not new concept. We have been working on this concept almost 10 years. And also, European data protection is running from this concept. And they put in the core concept code together. That is a very great impact for the data protections. We are not avoidable to put this concept into the city management. I assume that we can create something new with privacy by design in case you are worried about the privacy protections. That is the best ongoing right now in the next decades. Finally, I have some message to all. Education is very important. Education is not for the business. Education not for the citizens. Education is the learning together. It's very important. From the history of the sidewalk apps, we can learn a lot. Technology has great powers. Technology has great efficiencies. However, utility is not just the only things for the citizens, then development. It's more important to focus on the core learning, to creating something new, go together. So the education is the key environment, key infrastructures for us to take this step, to move in it forward. And I'm happy to create a new education with you with the privacy by design concept for the city management, city development. That is the keyword for us to create a new innovation for the city and the business. Privacy by design is the great framework for the smart city. As she told me that the privacy by design should be inclusive, the city management, then all we can come on the same board, then we can come on the creations of the development. Ideally, those concepts should be inclusions of from scratch, and we making it go together. Even we work on remotely from Japan, Thailand, from Japan and Singapore, or Western countries, we can co-develop the smart city together with this framework. Thank you for that, the listening my presentations. I'm so happy to be in touch with you if you're interested in privacy by design. That is a great to have a conversation with you through online anytime. So see you then.